we're dividing decimals using models. So first thing that we are going to look at is 2 4/10 divided by 4. What we need to remember is that when we are looking at this, your dividend is your first number, which is going to be giving you your total amount. Your divisor is going to be giving you your number of groups. And when you get your quotient, which is your answer, it is going to be giving you the number in each group. Okay, so 2 4/10 is represented this way. So remember that your one whole is represented here with your blue base 10 blocks. Your tens are being represented with your pink base 10 blocks. Now we're going to separate this into 4 groups. But I noticed that I have 2 wholes, and that cannot go into 4 groups. So I have to do something with these base 10 blocks. Just as if you had money, if you had $2, you can't share it with 4 people, but the total amount can be shared with 4 people by you breaking up those dollar bills. So we have to go ahead and trade out those 2 wholes for tens. With my 1 whole, I'm able to get 10 tenths, and so I was able to get 10 tenths right here because I traded it out, and I'm able to get another 10 tenths from my other whole, kind of like you having $1, and it's also made up of 10 dimes. So altogether, when I have my 10 tenths plus my other 10 tenths plus the 4 tenths that I have here, that will give me 24 hundredths. 24 hundredths is the same thing as 2 4/10, and you can see the similarity too with the actual digits. Now 24 hundredths can be separated into 4 groups, with 6 going in, with 6 tenths going into each group. And remember that our quotient is going to be the amount in each group, or number of groups. So this right here, my 6 tenths, is my quotient. Okay, moving on to our next problem. We have 3 21 hundredths divided by 3. So again, this is my total. This is my number of groups. And our dividend is our number of groups. I mean, my dividend is my total. My divisor is my number of groups. And then we are getting the amounts in each group, and that would be my quotient. So representing 3 21 hundredths right here with 3 wholes, 2 tenths, and 1 hundredth, and we are separating that into 3 different groups. What I notice is that I can separate my 3 wholes into 3 different groups by placing 1 in each group, but I have to do something with these tenths here. What I did was, with the tenths here, I was able to get 10 hundredths from each of these 2 tenths, which would be a total of 20 hundredths, which is the same thing as when I combine them, I end up with, so we have 10 plus another 10 plus my 1 that I have here is my 2100s. So with my 2100s, then I'm able to go ahead and separate those 2100s in 3 different groups by placing 700s in each group. So remember, your quotient is going to be the amount in one group. So we have 1 whole right here, which is represented by this 1, and our 700s. Okay, boys and girls. Now we're moving on to 1 and 1600s, which again is my total, which is my dividend. My whole number is going to be my number of groups. So I'm going to have 4 circles. And then our quotient is going to be the amount in each group, or number in each group, in one group. Each group. Okay, so here we're representing 1 and 6/10. 1 whole cannot be separated as it is into 4 different groups. Just like your $1 bill cannot be shared with 4 people unless you break that dollar bill down. So that's what we're going to be doing with our 1 whole. And I want you to kind of look at your numbers and see the relationship that you have between your dividend and your divisor without the decimal point and the zeros, and so that you're able to see the relationship and what is going on between those 2 numbers. Because we should see a relationship between 16 and 4. I know it's not 16, but if we took the decimal point away, it would be 16, and we should see a relationship there between 16 and 4. So what I did was I ended up having to get 10/10 from my 1 whole, just as if you were to have your 1 whole dollar and you break it down into 10 dimes. And with my 10/10 from my 1 whole, and the remaining tenths that I have left over, which is 6, plus 6/10, gives me a total of 16/10. 16/10 can be easily divided into 4 different groups, with 4/10 being in each group. So that is being represented here. And remember, the amount in one group, which is my 4/10, will be my answer, my quotient. Okay, so we have 3 and 4200s divided by 3. So I'm separating 3 and 4200s. My total is getting divided into 3 groups. So I should have 3 circles going on. I'm able to separate my 3 wholes into, and there's our representation of 3 and 4200s. I am able to separate 3 wholes into 3 different groups, as we see here, with our 1 whole being in each one. That was able to go in there evenly by just distributing them evenly between the 3 groups. My 3/10 is able to be separated evenly, as we see here. But we have 1 that was left over that we couldn't do anything with. So we have to go back in there, and now this has to become hundreds. So we would break this up into hundreds, which gives me 10 hundredths. Plus my 200ths, which gives me a total, plus the 2 that I already have, of 12 hundredths. 12 of these small yellow cubes is what we have, and that can be separated among the three groups as well. So our answer would be what is inside of our group. So if you notice that it does not distribute evenly, you have to break it, exchange it, just like as we would do with money. So my answer would be 1 and 1400ths. Our 1 whole, our 1/10, here it's a pink rod, and my 400ths, and we can see that with our 4 yellow cubes. Okay, so with this, now we're working backwards. And I know this is a little bit tricky for us to see, but it's important for us, like I said, you're going to be working backwards with this. So they're going to give you a model. You need to figure out what the total is, which is going to be your dividend. You need to figure out your number of groups. And you need to figure out the amount in each group. In one group, I'm going to put 1. So with this, I'm going to kind of work backwards with what's easiest for me. So I know my amount in one group. I can see it right here, which is 1 whole. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tenths, and 1 200ths. So that is going to be my quotient, my answer. The amount in one group is 1 and 6200ths. Okay, so now my number of groups. That is, how many circles do you see? How many groups do you see? Because you're not going to always see it represented this way. I see 4 groups. Now I need to figure out the total. All you're going to do is figure out how many total base 10 blocks we have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 holes. Now we broke apart earlier. Now we're putting them back together. We have 4 holes. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 in each group, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we keep going. That means that I have 18 tenths. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hundredths. Now remember, with your tenths, I have 10 tenths equal 1 whole. So I'm able to get 10 tenths out of here and make 1 whole out of it, which leaves only 8 tenths left over because I took it, I put it together, I exchanged it, just like we do sometimes. I have 10 dimes, let me put it together, and let me get a whole dollar out of it because it's easier for me to carry that dollar around than me having 10 dimes in my pocket. So what I did was I took, for example, we're talking about money, I took 10 dimes out of my 18 dimes. I exchanged it for a dollar and I combined it. So now we have 5 wholes. We have 8 tenths that are left over, and we have 8 hundredths that are left over. So our equation would be 5 and 88 hundredths divided by 4 will be 1 and 62 hundredths. Okay, now we're an equation for this. Again, I have to figure out my number of groups. I need to find out the total. Well, I mean, we could have, I just look at it. I think it's easier to look at the number of groups. That's why I wrote it first. But we should be writing the total first. And my number or amount in each group. This is just easy for, I think the last two are the easiest because you just count. So, okay, so again, you can work any way you want. If you want to start with your total, well, let's go ahead and start with our total because I'm doing what I think is easiest for me. So, but some of us, maybe the total is easiest for us. So again, we have a quick draw picture here. My lines are representing my tenths. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8 tenths. I have 2, 4, 6, 8 hundredths. And that is going to get divided by my number of groups. Let me count my circles. 1, 2, 3, 4. And my number in each group, the amount in here, in one group, I have 2 tenths and 2 hundredths, which would be 22 hundredths. So my equation will be 88 hundredths divided by 4 gives you 22 hundredths.